Noelle lifted her wine glass in front of her whole family and said, "No woman would want you." The table went still for half a second. Not long enough for mercy. Just long enough for everyone to decide if they were going to laugh. Her cousin Brooke made a soft choking sound into her napkin. Her uncle stared down at his plate like the mashed potatoes had suddenly become very interesting. Noelle's mother pressed 2 fingers to her temple. Her father, Paul, looked at me from the end of the table. I didn't move. I just sat there in the sweater Noelle had called Sad Divorced Dad Gray 20 minutes earlier, holding my fork over a piece of salmon I hadn't touched. Then Vivian, Noelle's younger sister, put her glass down. Not hard, not dramatic. Just one clean little sound against the table. "I would," she said. Every head turned. Noelle's face changed so fast it almost looked painful. The smile fell first, then the color, then that sharp, perfect confidence she wore like perfume. "What did you just say?" Noelle asked. Vivian kept her eyes on her plate. "I said I would." I should have been shocked. I should have been embarrassed. I should have stood up and told Vivian not to get involved. Instead, I smiled. Because 3 hours earlier, while Noelle was upstairs curling her hair for the dinner she planned to use as my public execution, I had seen the message on her phone. "After the dinner, I'll make him sign." That was the part nobody at that table knew yet. Noelle thought tonight was about humiliating me into obedience. She didn't know I had brought receipts. 3 weeks earlier, the first crack had sounded like a joke. We were at a friend's backyard cookout, standing near a cooler full of cheap beer and melted ice, when Noelle rested her hand on my shoulder and said, "Enjoy him while he lasts. He's my temporary husband." People laughed. I laughed too, because that was what I had trained myself to do. Noelle had a way of making cruelty sound like charm. If you reacted, you were sensitive. If you stayed quiet, you were boring. If you laughed, she got permission to do it again. So I smiled while my neck got hot. One of her friends asked, "Temporary?" Noelle shrugged. "You know, starter marriage energy." That got a bigger laugh. I stared at the picnic table, at the paper plate bending under a scoop of coleslaw, and told myself it was nothing. Couples joked. Wives teased husbands. Maybe I was tired. I repaired medical equipment for small clinics all over the county. Autoclaves, exam lights, EKG machines, old ultrasound carts that still worked because people like me kept them alive. I drove a white service van that smelled like solder, rubber gloves, and coffee. Most days I left before sunrise and came home with metal dust under my fingernails. Noelle liked to call that barely employed. The first time she said it, I thought she was angry. The 10th time, I understood she liked how it sounded. 2 nights after the cookout, I was looking for a photo Noelle had asked me to send her. Her tablet was open on the couch, synced to her phone, and a family group chat sat right there on the screen. I wasn't trying to snoop. But my name caught my eye. "Temporary husband strikes again," Noelle had written. Under it was a picture of me kneeling by the laundry room floor, fixing the dryer vent after she complained it was making the towels smell damp. Her cousin replied with laughing emojis. Her mother wrote, "Be nice." Noelle answered, "I am. I didn't say defective husband." I stood there with the tablet in my hand while the house made all its normal sounds. Ice dropping in the freezer, the dryer ticking behind me, a car passing outside. Normal sounds around a thing that was not normal. I set the tablet back exactly where it had been. That was when I stopped laughing. A few days later, I checked our accounts. I only did it because our mortgage company sent an alert saying the payment had been late twice in 6 months. That made no sense. I transferred my half every month. More than my half, if I was honest. Noelle handled the payment because she said it helped her feel in control of the house. I logged in at my workbench between 2 repair calls. A cracked blood pressure monitor sat open beside my laptop, its tiny screws lined up in a magnetic tray. The numbers didn't look right. There were transfers to vendors I didn't recognize, linen rentals, floral walls, charcuterie boards, custom signage, a mobile bar company. Noelle's luxury picnic business, the one she told everyone was finally breaking even. The one I had not been allowed to ask about because supportive husbands don't audit dreams. I scrolled until the room felt smaller. Money marked for the mortgage had been feeding her business for months. Not a lot at first, a few hundred here, 800 there, then bigger payments, deposits, late fees, rush charges. Our house wasn't struggling because I was dead weight. Our house was struggling because Noelle had been building an image with money she told me was going to the roof over our heads. That afternoon, Vivian came by my workshop. She was not the kind of person who dropped in. Vivian always texted first. She was 28, worked in a county records office, and had the calm, careful manner of someone who listened more than she spoke. She stood in the doorway holding a brown folder against her chest. "I found these at Mom's," she said. I wiped my hands on a rag. "What are they?" "Tax papers, business stuff, some house documents." Her eyes moved past me, to the bench, to the half-repaired machine, then back. "Did Noelle ask you to bring them?" "No." Vivian's voice got lower. "She hid them in Mom's hall closet. Mom thought they were old insurance files." I opened the folder. There were copies of Noelle's business tax forms, vendor statements, notices, a letter from our mortgage company I had never seen. My stomach tightened. "Vivian," I said, "why are you giving me this?" She looked toward the parking lot like she expected Noelle to appear behind her. "Don't sign anything your wife gives you this week." I waited for her to explain. She didn't. She refused coffee. She refused a ride. She left with her arms folded tight over herself, like she was cold in the middle of a warm afternoon. That night, Noelle cooked. That should have warned me by itself. For months, dinner had been whatever I picked up on my way home or whatever she ordered and forgot to eat. But that night, there were candles on the kitchen island, chicken in a pan, and Noelle wearing the soft blue sweater she used when she wanted people to think she was gentle. "We need a fresh start," she said. I sat down slowly. She slid a stack of papers toward me. "It's just a refinance form," she said. "Nothing scary. Rates might shift, and I want us to be smart." I picked up the papers. My hands stayed steady because I made them stay steady. Noelle leaned against the counter, watching me with that sweet little smile she used in public. I read the first page. Then the second. Then I pretended the third page confused me, because the longer I sat there, the more annoyed she got. "Babe," she said, and that word sounded strange in her mouth. "You don't have to study it like it's a bomb." I almost laughed. Because it was one. The last page showed exactly what Vivian had warned me about. Noelle was trying to move the house debt into my name only. Her business debts would remain hers on paper, but the pressure, the risk, the mortgage, the late payment history, every ugly part she had created would land on me. I looked up. Noelle's smile tightened. "Looks simple," I said. "Good. Sign it tomorrow?" "I want to read it when I'm less tired." Her face flashed with anger before she covered it. "Of course," she said. "Take your time." So I did. I took photos of every page after she went to sleep. The next morning, I called our loan officer from the parking lot of a pediatric clinic where I was supposed to fix a sterilizer. His name was Aaron. He had handled the original mortgage. Cheerful guy, always talked too fast. This time, when I gave him my name, he went quiet. "Is there a problem?" I asked. A keyboard clicked on his end. "Your wife called yesterday," he said carefully. "I know. She said you had both agreed to the restructure." The blood in my face went cold. I didn't agree to anything. Silence. Then Aaron said, "I'm glad you called." He could not tell me much, rules, privacy, procedure, but he told me enough. Noelle had not just prepared papers. She had started the process while pretending I was already on board. That should have been the moment I confronted her. But something in me had changed. For years, I had answered every insult like it was a small fire. I defended my job. I explained our finances. I told her I was trying. I told her I loved her. Every defense became entertainment. So this time, I did nothing loud. I went to work. I fixed the sterilizer. I changed a cracked gasket. I drove to another clinic and repaired an exam table that wouldn't lift. I ate a gas station sandwich in my van and printed a copy of the refinance emails at a shipping store. By the weekend, Noelle seemed relaxed again. That made her careless. At her cousin Brooke's birthday brunch, she leaned back in her chair and told the table, "I'm basically married to financial ankle weights." A few people laughed weakly. I buttered my toast. Noelle touched my arm. He knows I'm joking. I looked at her hand until she removed it. Brooke, maybe trying to rescue the mood, asked, "How's the picnic business going?" Noelle brightened. "Amazing. We're booked out. The vendors love me because I pay early." That was when my phone buzzed. I looked down. There was a text from Harrow Linen, one of her vendors. "Mr. Calder, thank you for the payment. We had been preparing to send the account to Collections Monday." I stared at the message. I had paid that invoice the night before because the overdue notice had my home address on it. Noelle didn't know I knew. She also didn't know the vendor had my number because I had called to confirm the balance. I put the phone face down. Then I asked one harmless question. "Which vendor did you say was paid early?" Noelle blinked. "What?" "You said vendors. Which one?" Her smile flickered. "The floral wall company," she said, "and the grazing board woman." Vivian sat across from me. She had been quiet all morning, cutting her eggs into pieces she never ate. My phone lit up again. Another message from Harrow Linen. Attached was a receipt, paid in full. Vivian saw it. Her eyes moved from my phone to Noelle. Noelle saw Vivian see it. That was the first visible crack. The brunch went stiff after that. Noelle laughed louder. She touched my shoulder harder. She started talking over people. 10 minutes later, she dragged me outside by the elbow. The porch smelled like rain and wet wood. "What are you doing?" she hissed. I pulled my arm free. "Eating brunch." "You're embarrassing me." I looked through the window at her family, pretending not to watch. I asked a question. "You knew what you were doing." Before I could answer, the door opened. Vivian stepped out. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "He didn't embarrass you," she said. "Your receipts did." Noelle turned on her. "Stay out of my marriage." Vivian's mouth tightened. "You keep bringing the marriage to the table." For a second, Noelle looked like she might slap her. Instead, she smiled. That smile scared me more, because it meant she was planning. The next week, Noelle became sweet. Not kind. Sweet. There was a difference. Kindness had weight. Sweetness was decoration. She cooked twice. She texted me heart emojis. She called me babe in front of the cashier at the grocery store. She bought the coffee creamer I liked and left it in the fridge with the label facing out, like evidence of being a good wife. One night, she kissed my cheek and said, "We've been off lately." I looked at her. "Have we?" Her eyes sharpened, but only for a second. "I want our anniversary dinner to be nice," she said. "Family, good food, no tension." No tension meant no questions. No tension meant sign the papers. That night, while she showered, I saw her purse open on the bench by our bed. A folded note stuck out from the side pocket. I had become good at noticing paper. I pulled it out. It was a hotel confirmation. Not in her name. Not in mine. Theo Whitaker. 1 King Suite. Saturday. Early check-in requested. The same Saturday as her parents. Anniversary dinner. My thumb pressed into the edge of the paper until it bent. Theo. I knew the name, but not well. He was a photographer who had done a few shoots for Noelle's business. He wore linen shirts and sunglasses indoors. He called women brilliant in a voice that sounded borrowed. I put the note back exactly where I found it. That was the hardest part. Not screaming. Not waking her up. Not demanding the truth while water ran in the bathroom and steam crawled under the door. I slept beside her that night without sleeping. The next morning, I called the hotel from my van. I told them I was checking a special request connected to our shared rewards account. That part was true. Noelle loved points. She had connected everything to everything. The clerk was polite. Too polite. "Yes, I see the request," she said. "Champagne, rose petals, late checkout." My hand tightened around the steering wheel. There should be 2 guests, I said. Yes, she replied. Theo Whitaker and Noel Calder. There it was. Plain, clean, undeniable. A truth with a confirmation number. I thanked her and hung up. For a few minutes, I just sat in the van outside a women's clinic with my forehead against the steering wheel. Inside, a nurse was probably waiting for me to fix a fetal monitor. People needed machines to work. People needed proof they could trust what was in front of them. I had trusted a person who had turned me into a joke. By Friday, my workshop printer had become a quiet weapon. It spat out everything. The refinance form. The email notes from Aaron. The hotel reservation. The overdue vendor bills. The Harrow linen receipt. Screenshots from the family group chat. The last screenshot was the one I kept reading even though it made my chest hurt. Noelle had sent it to her mother. After the dinner, I'll make him sign. He hates scenes. If everyone is there, he'll fold. Her mother had not replied. That silence bothered me almost as much as the message. Vivian came to the workshop after closing. She stood near the printer while I gathered the pages into an envelope. Her eyes moved over the top sheet. Then, the next. I didn't explain. She read enough on her own. When she reached the hotel reservation, she went still. When she reached the refinance page, she sat down on an overturned crate like her knees had given out. She's not leaving you, Vivian whispered. She's trying to bury you first. I looked at the envelope in my hands. That's what it looks like. Vivian looked up, and for the first time, I saw anger in her face. Not loud anger, worse, controlled anger. She told us you were the problem, she said. She said you were jealous of her business. She said you were holding her back. I nodded, because none of it surprised me anymore. Vivian swallowed. I'm sorry. Those 2 words almost broke me more than the proof, because I had not heard them from my own wife in years. At home, Noelle noticed I had stopped reacting. So she got louder. She invited extra relatives to the anniversary dinner. Not just her parents and sister, cousins, and aunt. 2 family friends who treated every dinner like a live show. She showed me the guest list, like it was a gift. Everyone wants to celebrate us, she said. I looked at the names and knew exactly what she was doing. A larger audience meant a larger stage. A larger stage meant more pressure. On the night of the dinner, she took almost 2 hours to get ready. She wore a cream dress, gold earrings, and the wedding ring she had stopped wearing around the house but always wore in front of her family. In the car, she reached over and touched my knee. Please don't be weird tonight. I kept my eyes on the road. What does weird mean? She smiled at her reflection in the window. You know, quiet in that punishing way. I'll be polite. I need more than polite. I almost asked what she needed. But I already knew. She needed me small. The restaurant had a private room with dark wood walls and a long table under low yellow lights. Noelle had chosen it because it made everyone look richer than they were. At first, she played loving wife. She fixed my collar. She told her aunt I had been working so hard. She leaned into me when her father took a picture. Then the little cuts started. She told everyone I owned only 3 decent shirts. She said my job made me smell like hospital basements. She joked that I was quiet because I had nothing marketable to add. Every time, she looked around for laughter before she looked at me. That was how I knew the insult was never for me. It was for the room. I let the room have it. I nodded. I drank water. I kept the envelope beside my chair, under my coat. Vivian sat 2 seats away. She barely spoke. Noelle noticed. So she sharpened the knife. You okay, Viv? She asked. You look tense. Vivian looked back at her. I'm fine. You sure? You've been very protective of my husband lately. The table shifted. Paul frowned. Noelle. What? Noelle lifted both hands. I'm just saying. He collects sympathy like coupons. A cousin laughed once, then stopped when nobody joined. Noelle's eyes glittered. She was losing the room, so she went for the big one. She raised her glass. I mean, let's be honest, she said. He should be grateful I settled. No woman would want you. That was when Vivian put down her glass. I would. Silence dropped so hard it felt like a door closing. Noelle stared at her sister. Her mother whispered, "Vivian." Paul looked at me. "What's so funny?" I didn't realize I was smiling until he said it. I reached down and picked up the envelope. Noelle saw it. For the first time all night, she looked unsure. "What is that?" she asked. I placed the envelope on the table. "Since everyone is here," I said, "I thought we could talk about what Noelle wanted me to sign after dinner." Noelle's chair scraped back an inch. "This is not appropriate," she snapped. I slid out the first page. The refinance form. Paul picked it up before Noelle could grab it. "What is this?" he asked. "A document moving the house debt into my name only," I said. Noelle told the loan officer I had agreed. Noelle laughed. "That is not what that says." Paul kept reading. His face hardened. I slid out the next page. An email note from Aaron confirming that I had not approved the change. Noelle reached for it. Vivian put her hand on the page first. "No," Vivian said. "One word." Noelle froze. I took out the vendor bills. Harrow linen, Oaken honey boards, Beljar florals, I said. All overdue, all tied to the business she told you was thriving. Brooke leaned forward. "Beljar?" "She told me they sponsored her." "They threatened collections," I said. "I paid one because the notice came to my house." Noelle's voice went sharp. "You went through my business records?" "You hid them at your mother's house." Her mother covered her mouth. So she had known something. Maybe not all of it. But enough. Noelle tried to recover. "This is pathetic. He's insecure because I have ambition." I slid out the hotel reservation. The room changed. It was not silence now. It was waiting. Paul picked it up. His eyes moved across the page. Then he read it out loud. "1 king suite, champagne, rose petals, guest names." He stopped. Noelle's face went white. Paul finished anyway. Thea Whitaker and Noelle Calder. Two cousins looked at each other so fast it told its own story. Brooke whispered, "Theo, from the photo shoot?" Noelle stood. "That is not what it looks like." Nobody asked what it looked like. That was the beautiful part. For once, she had to explain without the room helping her. I took out the final pages. The group chat screenshots. Temporary husband strikes again. Starter marriage energy. Defective husband. Then the message to her mother. "After the dinner, I'll make him sign. He hates scenes. If everyone is there, he'll fold." Paul read it. His hands shook. Noella's mother started crying quietly, but I could not tell if it was guilt, shame, or fear of being seen clearly. Noelle looked around the table for support. There was none. So she turned back to the things she knew best. "You're twisting this because you're insecure," she said. "You've always been insecure. You can't handle a successful woman." Vivian looked at her sister. "She told us he was the problem," Vivian said softly. Noelle snapped. "Stay out of it." Vivian shook her head. "No, you used all of us to corner him." That landed harder than anything I had said, because it came from her own blood. Noelle looked at me with pure hate. "You planned this." I stood up. "No," I said. "You planned it. I just brought copies." Nobody laughed. They didn't need to. I put the documents back into the envelope, except the copies I left with Paul. Then I picked up my keys. Noelle stepped into my path. "Where are you going?" "Home," I said, "to pack a bag." Her eyes flashed toward the table, like she suddenly remembered the audience. "You're really going to leave during our anniversary dinner?" I looked at the untouched food, the empty wine glass, the family that had laughed until the proof got too heavy. "Yes." She lowered her voice. "You'll regret this." I leaned close enough that only she could hear me. I already did. Then I walked out. No one followed me. That was fine. I didn't need witnesses for the exit. The next morning, I called Aaron and canceled any movement on the refinance. Then I called an attorney and filed for divorce. No grand speech. No online post. No screaming match in the driveway. Just signatures, copies, and a clean line drawn through the trap Noelle had built. By noon, her father had called twice. I let it go to voicemail. Her mother sent one message that said, "I'm sorry, I did not answer that either." Noelle called 17 times. I answered none of them. The last message she left was not an apology. It was a warning about how bad I had made her look. That told me everything. The woman who said no one would want me had never understood the simplest thing. I was not trying to be wanted by everyone. I was trying to stop being ruined by one person. And once I did, her whole life started looking less like success and more like unpaid bills, borrowed confidence, and a room full of people finally reading the fine print. I still think about that dinner sometimes. Not because Vivian spoke up, and not because Noelle got exposed in front of the same people she tried to use against me. I think about the silence right before everything changed. That silence had followed me for years. I used to fill it with excuses for her, with patience, with hope, with one more chance. But that night, I let the silence stay empty long enough for the truth to walk into it. So when people ask why I didn't yell, I tell them the same thing every time. Some doors do not need to be slammed. Some just need to be closed while you still have your keys. If this story pulled you in, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which receipt would have made you walk out first.